Kim Skinner here from stampingimperfection.com. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm making a card for Make these Cards Challenge this week using this Put a Spring in Your Step stamp set from Sassy and Crafty. The challenge is a color challenge, so it uses a red, an orange, and a blue. And of course I'm going to use my Catherine Poolers because I love rockin' red, orange twist, and suede shoes. So I'm excited about this. I am totally in love with this stamp set because I wanted a pair of Chucks when I was a kid, and my mother said no, they were boy shoes, so I didn't get my Chucks. And about 2 years ago, I bought myself a pair of Chucks, and so as soon as I saw this, I wear them every single day, and as soon as I saw the stamp set, I had to have it. Between the floral and the sneakers, it's awesome. So I am going to watercolor this. I've got a piece of watercolor paper which I've cut to 3/4 by 5, and I'm using my Versamark, and I do this 3 or 4 times when I'm stamping on watercolor paper because the texture doesn't always allow you to get good stamped images the first time, no matter what stamps you're using. So I'll do this 3 or 4 times, and I still don't get a perfect image here. So I decided to heat emboss this in black, and it makes it a little easier to watercolor. And I always feel like I'm cheating by doing this, but I love how this looks when it's done. Like when you heat emboss and then watercolor, it makes the watercoloring easier and it quicker, and I just like the effect, and I love heat embossing. So I'm just cleaning up some parts. I can't use you of course would use the powder tool, whatever powder tool you have, before you stamp that. I can't do that because I'm allergic to all kinds of powder. So I don't use it, and I really don't have a problem, but I have gotten really good at using that little paintbrush I have and my Tim Holtz craft tool there to get the stray embossing powder. And if there's a little bit of stray embossing powder, I'm okay with that. I'm just not that fussy. So I'm heat setting this, and then I'm going to go ahead and use those Catherine Pooler those Catherine Pooler inks to watercolor. Now the reason I can use Catherine Pooler inks to watercolor is because these are dye-based inks. That means they are water soluble. So that water, they actually are reactive in water. Alcohol inks, like permanent inks, would be reactive with alcohol, but dye-based inks, which are water soluble, react with water. So they are the perfect painting medium. So if you don't have watercolors, but you have dye-based inks like Catherine Pooler inks or Altenew inks or Stampin' Up inks, I've never used Close to My Heart inks, but I bet they are also. Most inks are. And I actually have watercolored with hybrid inks also. So like these work really well. I love Catherine Pooler inks. They are my very favorite inks. And I love the colors she has. I think, she's just come out with some more colors. I just think she's done such a good job. They're so vibrant, and you can do so many techniques with them. So my technique here is I'm doing a wet on dry. And sorry, I got interrupted by a phone call, and it was a video chat with my mother, so I continued watercoloring, forgetting that my camera was not on. So I am doing a wet on dry here. So you saw me spritz my ink and then mix it up. I spritzed it with water, mixed it up with my paintbrush, and now I'm just putting that right on the dry paper. I did not put water on the paper first, and I wanted it to be darker in the center and lighter around the outside. And maybe I made it a little too dark in the center compared to the outside, but I actually like the end result. So since I can only use red, blue, and orange, my sneakers are going to be blue here. So I'm putting a light coat of watercolor on, and I did not get I should have Versamarked it one more time. I didn't get a perfect stamped image up where all the shoestrings are. So I'm, doing this carefully because I'm not sure where the shoestrings are ending and the sneaker is peeking through. So I'm kind of taking some guesses here. And I have my stamp set beside me so I can peek at it. And I'm just, having a really good time because I love this stamp set. Now, there are actually two beautiful images in the stamp set. The second one has the same sneakers, but it's got different florals. There's lots of greens in the floors. There's more tropical. Now, I did put a streak of red because I was looking at the shoes on my feet, and they have a red band around the top. So I did put some red around there, and I got a little bit in the white part. So I picked that up. I actually used a clean paintbrush, put some water on it, went over the red, and then lifted off the excess water. And I just repeated that a few times till that red was gone. So I want a streak of red, and my shoes also have a streak of blue, so I'm going to put blue around them. And I should send my mother a picture of my feet. I wonder if she still thinks they're boy shoes, but I love them. They're so comfortable, and they go with everything. They even look good with skirts. Not that I ever actually wear a skirt. Now, I did not notice that I got a big blob of red there on that left shoe in the back. So that's going to be staying there because I didn't notice it. And it's okay. It's a watercolor. It's not supposed to be perfect. I'm just darkening up some spots here for the blue. And I'm going to let the water do the work as to where they end up dark and where they don't. If you want to see expert watercoloring, then by all means, Debbie Hughes, Lime Doodle Designs, you want to oh my gosh, she is the master watercolorer. Another person who's really good is Kelly Ladivola Taylor. She does beautiful watercoloring and beautiful Copic coloring. So those are two of my watercoloring heroes. So you should check them out if you really want good instruction. I'm just putting some gray on. This is Catherine Pooler's Twilight ink. It's a light gray. So I'm putting some gray on the shoestrings and on the white parts of the sneaker just to give it a shadow. I'm not covering the whole thing. I'm just trying to do the edges, and on the bottom part of the sneaker, I'll do the very bottom, and then I'll put a little bit of gray on that top white part. My sneakers are white, and after 2 years, they're still perfectly white. I'm not going to lie. I've been super careful with them. I don't wear them in the rain or if it's going to rain. So I'm adding a little bit of her darker, this is called Blackjack, which was the original black she came out with, and this is the dye-based one. If you have her Midnight ink, that is not dye-based, although I have used it to watercolor. It's a permanent ink, but I have used it to watercolor, believe it or not. So I added a little bit of that, where the rivets are, where the shoestrings go through the little eyelets, and in a couple other spots. So the trick here, so now I'm trying to clean up that side because I still don't see the red in the back, but I do see that the blue and the red kind of seep together. So I'm just using some water to clean that up a little bit, and it's watercolor. So the more water you add and, sop up, the lighter that color gets. So, it's good practice for me because I do go outside the lines a lot, and I'm impatient, so I should have let the red dry before I put the blue on. So I'm adding a little bit more gray around the bottom just to give them some dimension. It still looks white, and you can't really see the gray that I put on the top rubber part there, or even on the shoestrings, but there's gray there, and it just gives it some dimension and lets it stand out from the background. So there are a couple of red spots I want to fix. I want to darken them up a little bit, and I want to try to add some shadows. So I'm going to use some of that darker gray, that Blackjack color, and add some gray into the leaves that are actually underneath. And now I'm pulling out the Twilight. I'm not brave enough to do one of the things I learned from Kelly Ladivola Taylor is that the gray drop shadow looks amazing, but you need to be bold. You need to go with the darker gray than you're comfortable with. And I still haven't gotten to that point with my watercolors yet. I like the way this turned out. I'm going to not make any more mistakes. I'm going to let this dry. So I went and had lunch. I love this, and I went and had lunch. I'm okay with that one flower being slightly darker than the others. It's a flower. Some flowers are dark, some flowers are light. So I had lunch, and then I came back and decided I'm going to put the orange in because I still needed the orange, and that's going to be what I use to ground my sneakers. So if I was really good at watercoloring in light sources and shadows, I would have made it darker on one side and lighter on the other, but I just want to ground it. So that's the stage I'm at. I'm a work in progress here, and this is where I am, and I'm happy with this. My husband thought it was a work of art, God bless him. Like, seriously, God bless him. He acted like I drew those sneakers myself. So I probably should make sure he knows I did not draw those sneakers myself. If only, right? That is Beth Duff. She's a genius at Sassy and Crafty. And Sassy and Crafty stamp sets have the most amazing sentiments on them. I think she's got the best sentiments on her stamp sets out there. The next couple months you'll be seeing some great stuff from her, and I just loved her January and February releases. So I was super excited about this. The butterfly set and the butterfly stencils. She's got amazing stencils. So that card base is 4.25 by 11. I scored and folded it at 5.5. That orange panel is 4 by 5.25. And then my watercolor panel, of course, is 3.75 by 4. 3.75 by 5. So I'm just putting it all together with some liquid glue, and that's going to complete my card. Just cleaning up some spots with a sanded eraser there. And that completes my card. The stamp set is Sassy and Crafty. Thank you so much for watching, and we would love to have you join us at Make the Cards Challenge this week. Thanks for watching.